talked to you before a few weeks ago, Jesus and God. That's the mystery of our faith. That's the wonder. That's the step of faith. Don't you think that Jesus Christ felt a little bit cramped by the constraints of his mission? Think about this, the constraints of his mission. Later on, Jesus will tell his people about the seeming limitation and inconvenience of the mission of God. He will talk to them in terms of taking up your cross and following me. Have you ever watched a wine connoisseur drinking wine? How they smell it, they swirl it, they take in the full experience. And when they take it into their mouth, they are thoroughly enjoying the taste of the wine. The apostles, the followers of Jesus, will later tell the followers of the new churches that in order to savor, in order to fully enjoy the life of God in you, in order to fully engage with the mission of God, there is a sense in which you have to die to self. You have to let go. Excuse me, this is a bit of a nuisance. You have to let go. The best way to save it is to die to self. They will tell them that there's an element of paradox engaged in getting involved with the missions of God. That in order to grow, you have to shrink. In order to live, you have to die. That getting involved in the mission of God will at times be inconvenient, painful, and sometimes messy. Come on, guys, I don't want to do the thinking here for you. I want you to just engage with this and what it means. I don't want to spoon feed you. I don't want to give you pre-digested little devotional tidbits. We are talking about the incarnation of God on earth and all that it involved. There was an inconvenience. There was pain. There was cramping. There was a messiness. There was a danger. There was an ambiguity. There was a fragility. Consider this. Jesus' father, or earthly father, Joseph. This man was forced to become a refugee simply because he chose to put his faith in God. Now think about that for a moment. This man put his faith in God. He chose to do what God was telling him, and he found himself a refugee. He found himself having to move from his hometown and live in a country he had never been to, in a culture he was not familiar with, eating food perhaps that he didn't particularly like, amongst the people in a language that he did not understand. All because he got involved in the mission of God. His life was turned upside down. It became an inconvenience. It became a difficult thing and a painful thing to do. I was thinking about this today when I was preparing. It's interesting that Jesus became a refugee in Africa, which is the continent with the most refugees today. You think about his mother Mary. Here was a young woman whose wedding day will be overshadowed by whispers of the town gossips. Whose wedding day will be over, and whose experience of the birth of her first child will take place in a place away from the comforts of home and family. She will be in a place that is unfamiliar, and she will find herself starting married life with her new husband on the run. On the run. Going to a place called Egypt. Do you not think at some point she must have wondered, maybe I got it wrong? Can this be right? I mean, I do what God is asking me. I believe what that guy said in my room that night. I'm hoping it was real and it wasn't a dream. I am praying, I know that, but I'm wondering, did I get it right? Here I am going to Egypt. Because, in Jewish thought and in Jewish history, every time they went to Egypt, whether it was from Moses or Abraham, nothing good came from it. Trouble always followed. And the last time the Jews went into Egypt, it took personal intervention from God to get them out. And here we are going back. Surely this can't be the Messiah's way. That the Messiah is being hounded out of his own nation. 400 years of slavery had happened the last time. I wondered if Mary think, geez, will I ever get back? Will things ever be the same again? Will life ever be normal? I thought that when I obeyed God, I would be blessed. That I would get a house with no mortgage. Yeah. That people would look up to me and respect me. That my ministry would be revered and published abroad, and people would come and see me as the mother of the Messiah. Instead, here I am, running for my life to a strange land I've never been. Is this what it means to get involved with God and His mission? Think about these things. I don't want to address getting involved in church building up. Oh, this is going to be great. You get a place to do your ministry. You get a place to grow. You get a place to be seen. Yes, some of that will happen. But I'm going to tell you that building church is painful. Building church is inconvenient. Building church is difficult. And building church will sometimes feel cramped and messy. Because this is what the incarnation is about. Jesus came to build a church. His death on the cross was a means to an end. That end is sitting right around you this morning. This is what Jesus came to do. What you're looking at, what we're doing this morning, what people are doing all over this land and all over this city and all over this world is what Jesus Christ ultimately came to do. To build church, to gather a community for God, to establish a nation under God. And church building is going to be painful. And if you stay around, then you probably will find yourself in some of the situations, or some of the inconvenience, and some of the mess, and some of the pain that Joseph and Mary got themselves involved in, all because they said yes to God's invitation. All because they said yes to God's invitation to get involved. And again, I would ask you to think about the ways and means and the methods that God used in bringing this about. Consider Jesus himself. Like I said to you earlier, he was not born into the family of a priest. He was not raised a priest, where at least he would get deference and respect in community, or at least people would be nice to his face. Instead, Jesus was born and raised into the service industries. How many of you work in shops? How many of you work with the public? You'll know what I'm talking about. People are nice until you have to work with them. Isn't that right? Everybody loves everybody until they have to work behind the counter, or drive a bus, or a taxi, or work in a bar. We have here Jesus, who, instead of having the deference and respect, if you like, of being a priest or belonging to the high priest family, is raised in a line of work that brings him in contact daily with the public, the demanding, quirky, sometimes whining, complaining public. He's a man who builds walls, who repairs roofs, and repairs broken furniture. He's a man who will be raised in a family of 7, and he will be very familiar with the struggles that it takes to feed and clothe 7 kids. He's very familiar with what's involved in the lives of ordinary people of trying to make ends meet. I'm going to say this again. I want you to remember this. Getting involved in this mission is often, first and foremost, a very humbling process. If you come to church, if you come to the ministry thinking you know how to do it, you probably don't know what you're doing. You with me? If you think when you come to mission you know how to do it, you probably don't know what you're doing. Ask yourself this question: why did he wait 30 years?